Hey guys, what's up? This is something of an impromptu video, but I think it's going to be useful and maybe entertaining for some of you guys. I happen to have been in the middle of recording a video on these books right here. More to that later. Another video. That was the one I was planning on putting up, but after my first take, I was taking a bit of a break, and I was looking back on some of my past sword stuff for another sword video that I plan on doing later, and I noticed a very interesting comment under one of my older videos from last year on a body mechanics drill that I showed you guys, so that I kind of came up with to, show how to employ the body in sword technique. It's one of my, Chinese sword art drills. Now, the comment on its own really doesn't mean much to me. It's basically another troll basically trying to get a rise out of me. And I get those every now and then. And I generally have a hands-off policy on that sort of thing. If you wonder why after a while I no longer respond to certain videos, it's because for my own sanity, I stopped responding to videos after about a month of them being put up. Unless the comment that's put up is really, really interesting. But after, it's just for my own sanity, I just move on to the next one. That's just what I do. But this one just, this one just had me going, really? Really? When the video was first put up, this guy, and I'm going to say right now that I normally do not like putting people on the spot, even if they are trying to get a rise out of me, because what's the point? Then you're kind of sinking to their level and you're being kind of a bully then, because it's like you're showing who the guy is, and of course that's going to inevitably make everybody then talk about how much of an idiot he is or even respond to him directly, and why start that, right? But the reason why I'm focusing on this one is, one, well, you'll see what I mean. This video came out 2016, and back then he had a problem, this person, with me saying to use your waist to power your sword movements. And he basically stated that waist power is an illusion which is shared by most beginners and can be easily demonstrated and whatever. And he basically said that the real source of power in the martial arts is the legs. Now here's the interesting thing. He's right. But what he doesn't get, and he didn't get it then, and it looks like he still doesn't get it now, is that you can't really use the waist without the legs. I'm going to go into more of that later. And I said that. I'm like, you can't move the waist properly without the proper rooting of the legs. And I left it at that, and I never got a response, and I thought that he had gotten the point, because anybody who's taken martial arts will let you know, and knows that after a while. Without the proper rooting and usage of your legs, waist power can't be employed. The waist is actually, I want to save that for later. I'm saving that for the end, for the explanation. A week ago, the funny thing is I didn't see this hit my email or anything, which means he snuck it in. And I know he snuck it in because he changed his name. You could tell because, well, whatever. He then comes back a week ago. This video came out last year. He commented on it last year. He says his comment. I put one up. I thought that was the end of it, and I left it alone. And then he comes back a week later, 10 months ago, this thing was put up, to try to throw a shot at me, which you can see on the screen. Now, the reason why I am putting this up is, normally I don't do this because I don't see the point. But the reason why is because I realize there's a good lesson to be had here on something I brought up in a past video about how people who try to instruct you in skills kind of lie to you at first because you're not exactly ready to understand how to do something. I talked about that in my video on the cat stance, where I said that in the beginning, you don't tell the beginners exactly everything that they need to know because they're not going to understand it, they're not ready for it. And then after a while, they do get it, and they're like, oh, yeah. This is sort of the same thing here. In the video, you constantly... So I'm going to get into that because this is a really good example. This comment here helps me to explain that further. But another reason why I'm bringing this up is, look, Again, I don't like to do this sort of thing. I usually leave, commenters alone no matter what they say. You can say pretty much whatever you want. And I've gotten some really... I'm a black guy on YouTube who... Come on. And I've been here for a very long time dealing with some rather interesting people. I've gotten some pretty interesting comments toward me. And I've just let it all slide. But here's my thing. If after you make your comment, I make mine 10 months ago, and then you go out of your way to change your name and then come back to try to throw another shot at me for no freaking reason, especially when in the very video itself I basically state that I don't claim to be a master of everything, and yet you're trying to knock me down a peg, now you're looking for trouble. And people in the past know that that's the wrong thing to do in this channel. I may have mellowed out, but I still don't put up with bullshit. So, we're going to use this guy to actually learn something today. First, we happen to see that the guy is contradicting himself just to try to knock me down. In the beginning, he points out, rightfully so, that the power in a lot of movements comes from the legs. But then when I point out that, well, yeah, but you can't use the waist properly without proper rooting of the legs anyway. I thought he got the hint, what I was trying to say, but he didn't, and then tries to contradict himself by then suggesting that, oh, well, you're trying to say that you can't twist your waist from side to side without using your legs? No, that's not. Let me explain something. When in the drill video, I say to employ the waist, I also was telling everybody to make sure your stance was correct. Make sure to step properly into the movement. Go into the stances as you're turning your waist to do the drill. The reason why I say that is because, as I stated earlier, you can't really employ the waist without proper rooting of the legs. I do say waist power, and that's true-ish. It's really leg power, and the waist is the vehicle to drive the energy through. But trying to say to somebody who doesn't really understand this stuff, you need to power your sword with your legs. It's a kind of difficult concept for some people to get. They might think that, oh, so that means I have to step and walk as I'm doing. No, not really. You gotta, the twisting and the torquing that your waist and spine do come from the legs powering it, but it's a subtle movement. The power starts with the legs, twists into the waist, and then you employ whatever hand technique that you're doing. But that's hard to convey to people. So the shorthand is use waist power. But while they're telling you that, they're also telling you, and make sure you stand this way while you're doing it. Or make sure you step in this way while you're doing it. It's a bit of shorthand. It's a little sleight of hand trick to get the student to do something right. But it's a bit of misdirection by saying, yeah, it's the waist doing it. But in order to employ that waist that way, you need to use your legs. And you don't realize you're doing it until you've been doing it for a while. Like, I don't seem to get the power. And then they tell you to go into the stance and do it. And oh! Something else. When I say to use the waist, and I'm standing up now because I have to kind of show this visually, and I'm not going to go outside because I'm recording this at night, so you wouldn't be able to see me practicing out there anyway. When I say to employ the waist, I don't just mean this. Okay? This little narrow strip here is not really what they mean when they say the waist. When they tell you to employ the power that comes from here, they really mean from here to here. This area. You notice this encompasses more than just the area that your belt sits on. Which is right here. You're actually employing your abs and your thigh muscles. This area here is what's driving that power. So yeah, you got the upper muscles here, that helps a little bit with the twisting. But you also got your thigh muscles. And you can't employ those thigh muscles correctly to really drive the blow unless your feet are properly planted. Can't be in the wrong stance for that. And your feet have to be driven in a certain way to make the move work. Didn't you notice in that drill video that I said that your feet step into, like I said, you step into the stance and it drives you forward? That was my hint. Now, anybody who actually knew something about martial arts, or someone who wasn't out to start trouble would have went, huh, he did say to go into the stance and drive, so he does know what it is. He's just using a bit of sleight of hand just to get the person to understand what he's talking about, and would have left it alone. This guy didn't. And then when I dropped a hint to him by simply stating, dude, you can't employ waist power without the proper rooting of the legs, that should have been the clue. Any other person who's been training in this stuff would have gotten, oh, okay, yeah, I see what you're doing, dude. Not this guy. No. He has to come back 10 months later to try to knock a guy down a peg who didn't claim mastery in this in the first place. And while doing that, exposed his own ignorance on the subject. Or at least made himself look like he was ignorant on the subject. Because somebody who did understand what was going on would understand the sleight of hand that was being stated when saying use waist power. You cannot, I mean, let's just look at what this guy is saying. Lift your legs up. Yeah, everybody right now. Lift your legs off your seat and then try to get real power from the waist. You can't really do it, but once you plant your feet on the ground, now you got a foundation. Which doesn't contradict what I stated above. You can't really do it without rooting your leg. And now you say, so you're saying you can't do it? Well, that's what you said earlier. Didn't you? Don't try to play with the piranha, please. That if in case this guy is watching this one right now, don't. This isn't the channel to do it. It really isn't. I've been on YouTube for a long time now. I've dealt with straight up racists, white nationalists, crazy fanatical Christians. People have been trying their damnedest to do whatever they possibly could to make me look like an idiot, and I'm still here. If they couldn't do it, someone who can't even keep his own channel without changing his name to try to come at me later on is definitely not going to be able to do it. And keep in mind that I'm not claiming mastery to begin with. So what's the beef? Enough of that. I really shouldn't be focusing any attention on that. The main purpose of this video is to point out that sleight of hand that I say that people usually do when they're trying to get somebody to stumble onto the right thing. We say waist power, but it's really leg power. But the leg power is the raw energy needed to power your techniques. The waist guides it. But to try to explain that to somebody in the beginning, they're not going to get it. So you just simply say waist power, but make sure you're in this stance when you do it. Make sure your legs are over here when you do it. Make sure your feet do this when you do it. And sooner or later you go, oh, you just get it. You realize what's really going on. And then you have a hard time explaining it to somebody else, and so the lie gets repeated. Use waist power! By the way, cheese used the same way. It's the same trick. Same simple trick. You're trying to get somebody to do something that you're having a hard time to explain it to them, so you give them some freaking shorthand, so they're like, just do this. But you give them the tools to figure it out on their own. That's all I was doing in that drill video. Because, again, if I decide to go, alright guys, use your legs to power the sword. Honestly, would you guys have fully understood what the hell I was talking about? Or would it, or maybe you would have. I shouldn't underestimate your guys' intelligences, but do you seriously, what would have been easier for you guys to to grasp in your head if you're trying to do the drill? Me saying use your legs to power the sword. Okay, well how the fuck do I do that? Now I gotta go through a whole explanation of first you feel the power in your legs, you charge your thighs, and you squeeze the muscle and it goes into the waist. You guide with your waist the power up through the spine, into the shoulders and into the hand. Well, yeah, that's technically what you're doing, but average person's going to be like, how the hell do I do that? All right, use waist power while going into this stance. Oh, you mean like this? Which is the more efficient way to get the guy? You see what I mean? Yeah. this, I think, is, I'm hoping that I got the point across. Like, these little tricks, these little bits of shorthand that you see in Chinese martial arts to trick students to doing the right thing with a little misdirection. They do the same thing with so-called chi. You know, use your chi to, you know, repel or whatever. And really all you're using is proper, you know, body mechanics and muscles that you've never really had to use before, that you're training to use. Little bits of shorthand, and then when you get older, or you go, I shouldn't say older, but then when you get more experience into it, oh, that's what's really going on. How the hell do I explain this to this person? I guess I can't. Use your chi! That's, that's all it is. Same thing here. I'm repeating myself now. Hope you guys get the point. I'm going to go back to recording the stuff for the books now. Catch you guys later.
It calls for coordination of every part of the body, limbs, eyes, brain, and heart.